aliens, suit up for another round of comics, cartoons, and collectibles. I'm Sonya.
And I'm Al. And
Yes.
what do you mean suit up?
Protective suits. There's a lot of flying awesome in this episode.
Okay, so
it's occupational health and safety.
It's a safety issue.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
Well, there is a lot of awesome, so
There
I
is.
guess I can see your point. We'll be looking at issue 1 of Freelancers and also the graphic novel Blacklung.
Yes, we're doing another Kings Comics chat with a couple of our favourite Kings Comics staffers, Stephen and Siobhan.
Ah, yes. And what are you and Ray looking at today?
An anime series that I cannot pronounce.
Fantastic.
Yes, but before we get on to that, let's take a look at issue number 1 of Storm Dogs.
Awesome. You know, I think one of the really cool things about comics that have science fiction in them, it really gives the artist and the writer freedom to create this entire world.
Yep.
You know, they have complete control over the flora, the fauna, the culture. The very weather is theirs to command, which is pretty cool. And I mean, especially with creator-owned titles, you've got the opportunity to see some really interesting setups.
You certainly do, and it is the case with Storm Dogs, the new series coming out from Image. Writer David Hine has given us a fascinating new universe and a really interesting premise to go along with it. Think of it as CSI meets Star Trek. There's been a murder on a mining planet called Amaranth, and a crack team of investigators have been sent there to check it out.
Yeah, now, the planet Amaranth, I really like it because it's almost a character in the story in and of itself, and not a friendly one.
No, in the first, one of the first pages of the comic, you learn about the beauty and the diversity of this planet, and pretty much straight afterwards you find out that it's a really hostile planet as well.
Yeah, a planet where the rain melts people.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, me, that would make me steer clear.
You know, with the kind of the universe and the planet with the diverse beauty and the indigenous life forms, overridden by the value of its resources, I don't know, it kind of puts me in mind of a film, maybe Avatar?
Dude, you promised me you would not mention that awful film
I
ever
know.
again.
I really only do it to see your reaction to it, because it's just brilliant. Anyway,
Move on.
maybe we'll move on to the characters, shall we?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit there are a lot of stock characters in this graphic.
Yeah.
You've got, your no-nonsense commander, you've got your slightly awkward kind of medic, even an uncooperative deputy sheriff. Now, that said, I do feel like all these characters fit in really, really well, and that they've got a lot of room to grow and develop over the series.
Yeah, I did feel a little bit like Hine may have jumped the gun slightly on terms of handing us backstory. I mean, right near the start, we see these CSI guys talking to their friends and family and loved ones through something called the Weave. Right there at the start. And honestly, I kind of felt like we should have gotten to know these guys through their actions before we saw any backstory.
Well, I know what you're saying, but I also think it was really important to establish what the Weave was.
Okay.
It's kind of this psychic connection that everybody on the developed planets have. It's like, I don't know, a psychic Skype. You could probably check Facebook and Twitter as well. Look, that would be awesome.
I'm hoping there's more to it than that.
I'm sure there is.
But that's the thing, though. We don't know.
No.
And I do like that about how this has been written. You know, very little is handed to you.
Yeah.
I mean, they mention the Weave, they show you a little of what it can do, and then they say, okay, you'll be cut off from this while we're on the planet.
You can't use it.
It's a level 4 planet. We can't use tech above level 6.
Whatever that
They don't
means.
explain what that means either.
No.
I value information so much more when it's drip-fed to me.
Okay, so we've established that the story works well. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Now let's talk about the art. Yes.
Okay.
Come on now.
Yes.
Doug Braithwaite has such a deft touch with the framing and the composition of this book. I think it really deserves a mention. He's created such a beautiful world to go with the story.
Yeah.
And the close-ups on character faces, they're so beautifully done that you can really feel these complex emotions coming through.
Look, I know what you mean. It's odd, but the one that really actually got to me is there's this one extreme close-up on the eye of one of Amaranth's sort of green oxen-like beasts of burden. When it's standing there in the rain and it's coming down, it looks like it's crying. I don't know why that got me, but it really did. There's something very emotive about that. But aside from the emotional stuff, the action scenes really worked well as well.
This is a book that doesn't kind of shy away from the grotesque.
Not in the least.
I mean, we
Yeah.
do see these kind of raptor,
that kinda-
dinosaur-y kind of creatures attacking the miners, and it's quite vicious. You can feel the impact of those hits, you can see the ripping, and you also get to see what Amaranth's rain can do to people, and I don't know, kind of like a melted candle kind
Yeah.
of comes to mind.
It's not pretty.
It's really not.
No, but it is effective.
It is really effective and quite arresting as well when you see it.
Yeah, it is. Look, all in all, I think this has a lot of distance to grow and
Yep.
develop. I mean, this is issue 1 of 6 issues in the first season.
Yeah.
As it's being described. So I think this could do really well. I mean, as long as the characters continue to develop, I think. We don't know much about them yet, so they really do need to develop.
Yeah.
But as long as they do, along with the environment, this could be really awesome. It's definitely a buy.
Yeah, I gotta say I agree with you. I do like how you kind of get introduced to all these story elements that you just touch on without being overburdened by too many facts. You're basically learning about Amaranth alongside of the CSI investigators, these intergalactic investigators, which I think is really cool. You're learning with them.
Yes.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's definitely a buy from me as well. It's one to keep your eye on.
Check it out.
I call upon the spirit of Kangu, ancient protector to the realm, Terra Australis!
Right. You're pretending outside your head again.
Hey.
Okay, so can you actually tell me how to pronounce the anime that we're looking at today?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Shunbyo demo koi ga shitai.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, well, it means, regardless of my adolescent delusions of grandeur, I want a date.
Awesome.
Also known as Chu-2 for short, and I think we'll go with that for
That's
this
much
review,
easier to
but
cope with.
It is, yeah, saves our tongues from falling on the floor and us stepping on
Yes.
them and the... So... It originated as a Japanese light novel series written by Torako with illustrations provided by Nozomi Osaka. The work won an honorable mention in the 2010 Kyoto Animation Award competition. A 12-episode anime adaptation by Kyoto Animation began airing on October 4th, 2012. Accompanying it are 6 short or light episodes streamed on YouTube. It centers around Yuta Tagashi, a boy who, during his junior high school, had an adolescent delusion, or shunbyo, which literally means junior high school second grade illness. Now, I don't know about it being called an illness, but, you know, for some people this can be a very real and somewhat terrifying, even embarrassing period of life to sort of reflect upon.
Yeah.
But this series goes about celebrating that. Yuta, believing himself to be a dark flame master, alienates himself from his classmates until he is of age to attend high school. Finding his past embarrassing, Yuta attempts to start off a new school with a clean slate, free from his old delusions. This proves to be difficult, however, as another delusional teen, a girl named Rika Takanashi, learns of Yuta's other identity and becomes interested in him. Rika is constantly attempting to pull Yuta into this fantasy world and goes so far as to start a club at school called the Far East Magical Napping Society, or summer thereof. Now, the club forms quite haphazardly. I won't go into how the characters all assemble.
No.
We're going to be very careful not to give too much away of this series because, well, not a whole lot happens.
No, as far as events per episode, it's not big crises or anything,
No.
but rather everyday problems that these characters kind of have to
That's right.
get through, and whether they're using their fantasy powers or dealing with it in real life. For me, it's kind of a giant battle between slice of life reality and the very enticing fantasy realm that they've created.
That's right, and that world that they've created around this idea is really, really beautiful.
It is.
It's more than just a run-of-the-mill cityscape. These frames are full of detail, coloured with rich pastels. Coupled with this is the alternate universe where they slip in and out of, and there you can see really bold primary colours. They really resonate here and provide a really good contrast to that of the pastel colours in the real world. The animation is crisp, there's a cleanliness about it, and things really ramp up when the fantasy world takes over too. You could mistake this for any number of action animes out there, that's how good it is. The character design is simple, there's a clumsiness, a sort of a naivety about the characters that make them irresistibly human. And most of them are your kind of generic archetypes, with the exception of Kumin, who takes napping very seriously, and the cat called Chimera, that by day has been subjected to wearing pink wings. Now, it's because we know these kids, that we were these kids, that we're drawn into Chu-2 so easily and are able to quickly empathize with these character dilemmas. And this is mostly due to clever writing. The dialogue is really fresh and it's undeniably funny. The scenes go by quite quickly as well. It's economic. There's not a lot of fat to it, which is really refreshing because, you know, for an anime, the storyline can often sort of drag and you can predict what's happening, but in this case, they're staying ahead of their audience, and that's really nice. You're on your toes.
It is a delightful and quite insightful look into that awkward stage that I think most of us, if not all of us, have kind of gone through.
Absolutely.
Now, I saw the original version. Is there a dubbed version? Did you see that, Ray? Or?
I didn't see a dubbed version. I saw the original as well.
Yep.
You know, to be honest, I don't think it would translate very well. I know often anime, you know, doesn't. You lose a lot within that, but to be honest, this particular anime, I think you will lose a lot of those nuances, those character eccentricities, and so yeah, I'm not sure it would translate very well into a dubbed version. Now, what did you think of the series, you know, as it's in its entirety?
Well, I loved it.
I thought you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At first, I was very skeptical. Not another school drama, but it did win me over quite quickly. The characters are just so damn cute, especially Ricky.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much joy I get out of watching this series. I love the relationship between Yuta and Ricky. Sometimes I think he's a bit rough on her though. It's a bit mean, but I think it's a case of tough love. It is funny that even though he's trying so hard to reinvent himself, he will gladly hang out with these 4 female friends over other classmates because they're willing to participate in the fantasy that he'd rather belong to.
Yeah, that's right.
This is one of those series that I would most definitely show my friends, even if they weren't into anime, because I think you can still relate to it. You still find it funny and endearing, so it's definitely a buy from me, most definitely. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they depict this period of childhood so precisely, this burning question of identity coupled with the, you know, awkward sexual curiosity, you know, and they hint at it, you know, visually a fair few times throughout the series. And I didn't think that was too overt though
No,
either.
it's not. It's more of that suggestive kind of, it's like how teenage boys look at teenage girls and that kind of, oh,
yeah,
don't want to.
understated, it's kind of embarrassed
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah, and I found that this was an interesting issue to tackle, this childhood phenomenon, you know, that as adults we kind of look back and, you know, we forget sometimes that it's a free time of our life where it's quite joyous, where, you know, for some of us, you know, the world is so huge, it's beyond reality, where we're participating in our own grand story, this great fantasy or movie or game where you're a hero and, you know, you just have this one objective, you know, this destiny to fulfill.
Way much more fun.
Yes, exactly. I'd rather spend more time there, but there is reality. But as you said, you know, with the characters, the key is in the relationships.
Yeah.
I love the duality of how these worlds collide, how the characters convert the smallest things to dire obstacles that require the use of their superpowers, like overcoming Ricky's sister with her dreaded spoon. So if we've hooked your interest, I would say stay away from the light episodes that are on YouTube. Basically, they're more of an amusing anecdote than, you know, a real insight into what the series is about.
Yeah.
So stream it instead, check it out. I guarantee you it will grow on you.
It will.
For me, I think this is the sleeper hit of the year. It's, that big. It's a buy from me.
Awesome.
Yeah, but for those of you who don't want to delve into this world with us, then you can just go make a sandwich.
Freelancers is the new title from Boom Studios about 2 girls who are bounty hunters in Los Angeles. Now, if it sounds like it's a kind of gritty, domino-esque style story, I'm just not explaining it very well.
No.
Important fact number 2, they grew up in an orphanage.
Yeah, that still sounds kind of dark.
A kung fu orphanage.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freelancers is honestly about as dark and gritty as a triple fudge sundae.
Absolutely. I mean, this is popcorn storytelling, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else. The hired guns are Val and Cassie, and they've been watching each other's backs ever since they were little girls growing up in this orphanage.
Yeah.
Writer Ian Brill really pushes for that buddy cop kind of atmosphere.
Yeah,
just
and
really hard.
And fails most of the time. Look, I get that this is supposed to be just, you know, silly fun,
Yeah.
a silly plot, it's not supposed to be taken seriously, but we've seen this done a lot better. I
Yeah.
mean, stuff like Danger Girl jumps instantly to mind.
It's not really fair to compare the two, though.
Okay, so we won't compare.
Don't
Let
compare.
me just ask you some questions.
I'm scared.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so first, did you find either of these protagonists remotely endearing?
Well,
Okay, next question. Did you laugh at any of the gags?
well,
Third question, did you even enjoy reading this comic?
well, not so much, no.
See, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
The writing is stilted, the storyline just trips over cliches the whole way through, and frankly, the banter between these, buddy cop kind of falls as flat as the artwork.
Yeah, now I do have to agree with you. The artwork in this is, well, less than impressive.
Yeah.
The character models are okay. And I do like that kind of uber cartoony style.
It has its place.
It's got its
certainly.
place,
Yeah,
but there's no depth to these images.
None
That's
whatsoever.
my biggest problem. But
Yeah.
more than this, it's the action sequences. Now, Joshua Covey has got a lot to learn about visual continuity in this.
Oh god, yes. I mean, there is little to no cause and effect
No.
in these images, and especially, as you say, in the fight scenes, it just devolves into a series of disconnected visual snippets
Yep.
that have no impact and leave you with, honestly, very little idea of what's going on.
And that's a bit of a problem when you're doing a story about kung fu bounty hunters. Like, you got to expect that there's got to be a couple of fights in
one or
there.
two,
One
yeah,
or
at
two,
least.
and
Yeah.
if this first issue is anything to go by, they're all going to be kind of weak and confusing.
Yeah, and punctuated by painful one-liners. We just,
Oh, yes.
I'm assuming that was a joke.
I don't know.
But you know what? Before we write this off completely, let us talk about this comic's single saving grace.
You, sir, are talking about Tiny Fighters.
Yes, indeed, I am,
Yes.
my learned colleague. Now, Tiny Fighters is a 6-page story that happens at the end of this comic.
Yep.
Now, it's written by Matt Gannon with art by Philip Smith, and it's a flashback story that shows Val and Cassie as little kids growing up in the orphanage. And in 6 pages, it completely buries the main story.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
The dialogue is snappy and funny. The visual style is amazing. The action has real impact. I wish that they'd kind of swapped the creative teams over, because then Freelancers would have been a way better comic than what it actually
superior
is.
in every way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but look, I've got to say, as nice as Tiny Fighters was, 6 pages, it didn't save this comic.
No.
I mean, the main story is just too dire. I am going to give this one a bury. Avoid this comic.
Oh, but we didn't mention the other saving grace of this comic.
Which is?
It's really cheap.
That's true,
You can
actually.
pick up issue number 1 for $1.25.
Yeah. It's almost worth it. Look, please tell me you're not giving this one a buy.
I'm
Don't you
not,
dare.
I'm not, but I'm also not burying it. I'm giving it a really kind of low borrow. If you happen to see it on a friend's table, do pick it up, have a flick through. I do recommend going straight to Tiny Fighters and then just putting the rest aside. But it's a borrow, but yeah, a low one.
Do you know what another word for low borrow is? Bury.
No, I'm not burying Kung Fu.
It's not kung fu, it's just...
It's illegal. I'm sure it's illegal to bury Kung Fu. Okay guys, we are doing yet another Kings Comics chat with 2 of our favourite staffers. We've got Stephen and Siobhan. Now today we're actually going to answer a question that one of our Kapowians sent us.
Yes.
And it's about comic continuity. I mean, we've got a lot of movies and a lot of TV series animated coming out. And so anyone who kind of watches it and goes, yeah, I want to get into that, where do they kind of start? I mean, our Kapowian mentioned Wikipedia was a good place to start, but as far as walking into your comic book shop and going, I want to look at whatever, where would you recommend these guys start?
Well, I think one of the best ways to start is at the start of a run. So you find it, there's plenty of runs which have got really good writers or artists, particularly writers. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
So things like the Jeff Johns run on Green Lantern's a really good one to jump on. The DC New 52, a lot of trades are out for that now. So, and Marvel with the Marvel Now stuff on the comic book side of things is a great way to
It's a
start.
good way to start now, yeah.
But there's a lot of older runs as well, even like the Joss Whedon Astonishing X-Men. It's a great way to start people into the X-Men with characters that they know.
That they're already aware of, yeah. See, because I know that I like starting from like volume 1 of graphics. I know that I get a bit confused if I start with, issue number 53 of something. I'm like, but who are you people? Why are you doing what you're doing? So I tend to agree with that.
Okay, look,
You're gonna be
yeah,
different.
I am. I'm going to be awkward.
Yeah.
It's kind of my shtick. But I don't know. I kind of feel there's so many sort of ongoing ones. It's sometimes going to be a bit hard to backtrack and go to the start of an arc. I feel like you shouldn't be afraid to just grab an issue
Yeah.
and just go from there. You may not understand everything that's going on, but you're going to be able to get enough sense of it if it's well written anyway.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, that's how I started reading comics, just going into
Yeah.
my newsagents going, oh, that looks cool.
Check that out,
And then,
yeah.
you know, you can Wikipedia the backstory if
Yeah.
you need be, or like you can, as Stephen said, like go back and get the trades of the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
But I think if something just like, you know, speaks to you just from the shelf, if you think the cover looks awesome, then just pick it up and go for it. I think people are too concerned with like starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be able to start at the beginning. Like, these
No.
characters have been around for,
Not
you know,
unless you've got
75
Action Comics
years.
#1. you know,
Exactly.
you-
I wish I did.
I wouldn't be here if I did.
Wouldn't be too bad.
It wouldn't be too bad. What about like classic kind of titles? Do you recommend that people go back and look at the classic kind of Batmans and the classic Supermans and that, if that's what they want to get into, or stick with kind of the newer stuff that might kind of be more of the visual that we're used to with Supermans and Batman and things that have come out now?
Well, I think I agree with Siobhan in a way in that go in and just take your time and browse. I
Yep.
think a lot of people just come into a shop and they want to know exactly where to start. and really, it's really personal taste, and you
Yeah.
really need to go and have a look at the shelf and, as you said, see the artwork that's out there, see the writers, and see what takes your fancy, and then maybe do a bit of research on Wikipedia or on the internet, and then try and work out what you want. But there's plenty of points to start.
Yeah. But I think if you are committed to becoming a nerd,
A nerd.
then there are certain titles that you should definitely read. Like if you're interested in Batman, you have to pick up The Long Halloween and you have to pick up The Killing Joke and those kind of
Yeah.
books, because they're just going to give you a really good grounding for the character and to be able to see the like longer story arc.
Yeah.
And that
I mean,
sort of
I
stuff.
think though, if people are coming in from seeing a movie or seeing an animated series, they shouldn't worry too much about whether what they've seen is going to match with the canon,
Yeah.
because it usually won't.
It won't.
No, it's going to do their heads in. They'll lose
completely.
their mind.
Wait, that's not. He was
But where
related
was that
to him. and
story?
Where's
Yeah.
that bit that happened?
Yeah.
It's, the movies pretty
Yeah.
much just do their own thing, as far as I've seen. Anyway.
Yeah. People get too bogged down in continuity. I think a story should be able to stand up by itself, and you should be able to just read it and enjoy it,
Yeah.
and not be like, oh, but that character did this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand.
What about issue
Let it,
72?
let it go, guys. Let it go.
Move
Just
on.
read it. You
We
know,
are
enjoy
finding.
it.
Oh, sorry. We are finding though with a lot of the younger readers' titles, that's what they're doing. They're just doing standalone comic books. So it's really good when you're getting young kids coming in. You can just pull the current issue off the shelf and give it to them, like Simpsons or SpongeBob or even
Yeah.
Scooby Doo. They're standalone
one
comics,
little
and
story.
it's like how we read comics when we were kids as well. You just walked into a newsagent and just pulled the comic off the shelf, and you just got into it.
I want this one.
I mean, maybe it may explain some of the popularity of some of the, like Image and Dynamite Boom, who have these sort of short-run little mini-series.
Absolutely.
Because I love that.
I
I love a
love the
story I can just
miniseries.
start off. Here's the start. There is
Yeah.
nothing before this. This is where the story begins. I read the 5 issues and then it's done.
Yeah.
I put it on the shelf and I read it again later.
Yeah.
But you don't have to worry about it connecting to anything grander. And I think a lot of people are kind of backlashing against the massive amount of continuity they have to worry about with the big two.
Absolutely.
Do you think are they doing that kind of shorter run with the larger characters though? I mean, we get a little mini series with things like American Vampire, but obviously that's not translated into a movie. But like, are there a lot of kind of mini series like your Batman or Green Lantern mini series that people can maybe have a look at, get a taste of, and then go into the main series?
With some characters, there's more than others, like Batman and stuff. Like Long Halloween is a self-contained story, even though it continued on in the same vein afterwards. It's not super continuity heavy. Same thing with like the Frank Miller Batman stuff. You don't have to read any other Batman to be able to read that. In fact, that would probably just make things more confusing. But with a lot of the other characters, there's not quite
There's
enough.
not. There's more
not
of a-
enough. Like, I'd like to see more sort of just standalone stories that don't have anything to do with the rest of the continuity that you can just dip
Pick up,
into.
read.
Well,
Yeah.
I think they're starting to do DC with their relaunch of all their titles. They're trying out all their characters, so you are actually getting a few of the bigger characters having their own standalone. But we would like to see some more obscure characters get their chance.
We're finally getting our Vibe miniseries that everyone's been crying out for. Awesome.
That's
time
cool.
too.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much, guys. I hope that we've
Yes,
helped.
that's been enlightening.
Yeah, with learning how to get into your comic books. But I think, regardless of whether you go at the beginning of an arc or just jump straight in, I think the important thing is to get in, get involved,
Don't be
start
afraid.
reading. Don't be afraid
That's
to
the
walk
main rule.
in and go, I like Green Lantern. I want that
What
one.
have you got for me?
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. Just
Yeah.
to kind of get out there and read as much as you can and as many characters as well. Don't limit yourself to.
Yeah.
And
certain
figure out what
characters.
you like. Don't you know, if something's selling really well, that doesn't mean that you're
doesn't mean you're
necessarily
gonna
gonna
like
like
it.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you like Vibe, you go read that Vibe miniseries. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Good advice.
Very good advice. Awesome. Well, thank you, Stephen and Siobhan. It has
Thank
been
you.
amazing, as usual. Thanks, guys. There are some graphic novels that you finish and you run to your closest friend and go, dude, you have got to read this. It is awesome.
Yeah, you freak me out when you do that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I get excited.
I know.
Then there are other graphic novels that you quietly close and put on the table and stare into space for a good 20 minutes trying to work out how you feel about this.
Yeah.
Blacklung from Fantagraphics, well, it definitely falls in that latter category.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Because it's a bit...
And this.
And then...
No, we can't do this.
No.
We have to talk about it.
Okay, we do. Okay, so let's start with the story then, shall we? Use your words out.
Okay, I actually think we should start talking about the art.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I think
I'm totally okay with
because
this.
the artwork that Chris Wright uses in this graphic novel, it's the first thing that knocks you sideways.
Yeah.
I think in this, it really does. It actually took me a while to get used to it.
Yeah, it is incredibly stylized, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I do know what you mean about it taking a little while. I think for me it was about 10 pages in before my brain started to recognize what was going on.
Yeah.
These kind of highly stylized characters with their bulky and misshapen bodies, patchwork heads. Yeah, it took me a while for it to actually sink in that, no, that's a human feature and there's a human emotion and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the characters seemed even more bizarre to me because the backgrounds were almost naturalistic.
Absolutely.
You know, that really created something of a disconnect.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting about using these, so, you know, the bulky bodies and misshapen heads, it allows you to see some of the oftentimes quite brutal violence in this from something of a distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's extremely effective.
Yeah, now, you did mention the violence, so I think we do need to talk about the story.
It's quite a turnaround,
Well,
isn't
yeah.
it? You wanting to get on with the storyline.
I know, but there's kind of a lot of it to
Okay,
get
yeah,
through.
yeah,
Okay,
go
so
ahead.
at the start, Blacklung is a story about two guys. You've got a rather pompous teacher called Isaac and a big gangster bruiser called Mose. Now, Mose is shanghaied onto a pirate ship and poor old Isaac kind of gets dragged along rather brutally.
Yeah, completely by accident.
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad luck day
bad
for
luck
Isaac.
day.
Now, up to this point, it's actually pretty straightforward, at least as far as the plot goes.
Yes.
But then we meet the pirate crew.
Ah, yes.
You've got kind of a first mate who has a bent towards existential philosophy.
Awesome.
You've got a mad priest. You've got a syphilitic psycho called Sweeney.
Terrifying.
Who takes great joy in torture.
Yeah.
And then you've got the captain.
Ah, the captain. Captain Brahm. He's a very interesting character. He's kind of taken on the pirate life in order to blacken his soul so much that he is guaranteed entry into hell, where he feels he will be reunited with his loved ones.
Yeah.
It is a colourful cast of characters, to say the least.
Yeah, it really is.
What I really love about that is that every single character changes throughout this book. They
Yeah.
go on this amazing journey, and no one character is the same.
Isaac, in particular, when he's taking down the memoirs of the captain,
yeah.
he is a very changed man by the end of this journey, which is very interesting to see the progression.
It's his fascinating
It
journey.
really is. I mean, this is a complicated book with musings on, as we said, philosophy, literature, morality, religion, especially is a big
one in religion, yep.
focus. You know, talk about Milton and Paradise Lost, and
Yep.
all this really quite in-depth backing and forth thing. It's honestly, it's hard for me to describe this book. I mean, even after having some time to think about it, I think I'll need to read it again before I really know what I feel about it. I mean, all this highbrow stuff mixed in with this visceral violence.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I've read it twice now, and I still don't quite know how I feel about it. It kind of preys on my mind, and it has done for a few days. The disconnect between the beautiful stylized artwork and the viciousness of the characters and the violence, it kind of puts a disturbing note in your brain. But I tell you what, it's one that I'm quite happy to have and think about for a while yet. I still just, I don't know, I can't explain how I feel about this book.
Yeah. Look, I don't know what else to say about this. This is quite a stunning graphic novel debut.
Yeah.
For Chris Wright, you know, because he's done other comic stuff, but this is his
first graphic
novel.
Yep.
So, you know, very impressive debut. Yeah, not much more to say other than this is definitely a buy.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a buy from me as well. Look, I do recommend if you decide to read this one, set aside a couple of hours so you can actually read it from beginning to end in one sitting. Yeah. For me, the first time I read it, it was kind of broken up. Second time I read it all in one hit, and I think that worked a lot better.
You can sink into the world.
You can sink into the world. Yeah. It is such an interesting, intriguing, and amazingly drawn world. Do yourself a favour and do check out Blacklung.
Creepy though.
Creepy. Creepy pirates.
Yeah. So, how was that pronounced again, that anime?
Shut up.
Okay, well, we're out of time anyway. Next week we will be back. We're having a look at the graphic novel adaptation of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Indeed.
And what else?
We're also going to take a look at the first trade paperback of the series Godzilla.
Godzilla?
Yes.
We must flee!
Oh my goodness. Bye, guys. I'm sorry. You okay, Al?
Over.